guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are doing well. Today we're starting the video off with making some authentic Mexican bolillo bread. I've never made these before. They're not going to be sourdough, they're just going to be yeast, but I'm using my good flour the way God intended, and we're going to get these made and hopefully they turn out. They actually did. They turned out really good. The only thing that I would say about this recipe is that I would double it for sure, and I would let them rise a little longer after they are shaped. So the first thing that I'm doing is getting my yeast going. I need to mix 1 packet of active dry yeast with 1.5 cups of warm water and a teaspoon of sugar. I used honey, and we're just going to let that sit and bubble up. It takes probably about 5 or 10 minutes until foamy, and then we're going to put the dough together. I'm having a lot of fun making any kind of bread that we need for our dinners or meals. It's been really fun to challenge myself to get those things made. And Ernie wanted me to make tortas, which I ended up not making. I made the bread, but I didn't make tortas. So we did end up having one the next day from leftovers because we ended up going out to eat dinner, which we do when he's home for the weekend. So anyways, they were delicious. And so it's a really easy recipe. It's not mine. It is from the, I'm not sure what website actually. I typed it into chat GPT and it gave me the recipe, but no website. So all it is 4 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 1/4 teaspoons of active dry yeast, or just 1 packet, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, 1.5 cups of warm water, and 1 teaspoon of sugar. I used honey. You can use maple syrup. You can use whatever you want. I typically will replace the sugar for honey or monk fruit. So you're going to activate these. That's the first thing you're going to do, and just let it sit for the 5 to 10 minutes until foamy. And then you're going to start making the dough. And you're going to add the flour, the salt to the yeast mixture, and you're going to mix until a shaggy dough forms. And you can knead it by hand or use a handy dandy mixer like I am and mix it for 8 to 10 minutes in your hand, or by hand or the mixer. You just want to knead it until it's smooth and elasticy. And once it's done, you're going to place the dough in a lightly covered oiled bowl and let it rise for 1 to 1.5 hours until doubled in size. And then you're going to divide that dough into 8 pieces, shape into an oval like a football shape. Place on parchment lined baking sheet, cover, and let that rest for 30 minutes. And that is one of the things that I would change for this recipe, is I would cover and let it rest until those are doubled in size. So that is the only thing that I would change. And then you're going to preheat the oven to 425 degrees, and you're going to put an empty metal pan on the bottom rack of the oven and put water in there. It says to put a cup in there. I just filled it up with water because you want to essentially bake and steam these rolls at the same time. You're going to slash each roll lengthwise with a sharp knife or a blade, and lightly mist them with water, which I did skip that step because I didn't have a mister, but I actually do. I just forgot about it. And then put them in the oven and bake them for 18 to 22 minutes until golden brown. The internal temperature should be 200 to 205 degrees, and rolls should sound hollow when tapped. So this was my first time making them, so there are definitely some changes that I would do. I think that letting them rise for longer is going to give me a airier roll. These are, for those of you who don't know, if you've ever had a torta at a Mexican restaurant, this is the bread that they use for that. So it's called a bolillo, and I've never made them before, so I'm just kind of shaping them. One of them's going to come out funny because one of the rolls was a little bit too light in the dough, so I took some dough from one of the other rolls and I put it on there. It doesn't matter. As long as they taste good, that's all that matters. But like I said, I would let them rise from this shape until these are doubled in size, and then I would make sure to mist them. So I did everything right. Like I said, they came out delicious, but I thought that they were a little small. They were like for, I don't know, kids. They were like kid-sized tortas, and I'm not used to that. So I'm going to give it a shot next time and see if I let them rise longer, if they double in size, or if they're bigger. There was a couple of them that were actually perfect. And then also I think the misting part of it will help, and then leaving them in the oven a tad bit longer. I don't think I've left them in long enough. I think I need to leave them just to give them a little bit more of a toasty color on top. But look they're beautiful. If you've ever seen a torta, this is what they look like, except for the funny one. And I did that. I made those. It's so satisfying to make your own bread products. Okay, now we have moved over to the cleaning closet, the overstuffed and crazy cleaning closet. Have you ever heard of sunk cost fallacy? Sunk cost fallacy is something that most of us suffer from. It is why I had a crazy closet, which I decluttered ruthlessly in the last video, and also in types of closets like this, where we spend money on things and you continue to hold on to it because you've invested time, money, or effort. And it makes no sense to keep doing it, but it's an irrational tendency to let past uncoverable costs, sunk costs, dictate all of your future decisions, often leading to holding on things like old clothes, unused gadgets, or even bad relationships because you paid for them. I think we all suffer from it, and it definitely shows, and it shows here in my cleaning closet. One of the benefits of decluttering is the dopamine release. Did you guys know that when you declutter, the act of completing that task and seeing the visible results, it triggers the brain's reward system and you get a dopamine release, and that's why it feels so good. And that's why I'm always encouraging you guys to declutter even the smallest of areas, and we do it together and we can keep encouraging each other. So here's everything that was in that cleaning closet, and we are going to declutter some of this stuff. I also have my I have my cleaning rags, my dish towels, and my hand towels for the downstairs bathroom, so we're going to declutter those as well. But we're going to make room for all this stuff, and I'm only going to put back in this closet what absolutely is supposed to be in the closet. Benefit to decluttering areas is the reduced stress and anxiety. So a tidy space lowers the cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and reduces the mental weight of managing excess items. I don't know about you, but I am a huge paper clutter anxiety person. So if I walk into any room of my house and I see a ton of paper clutter, it gives me instant anxiety. So I try and stay on top of that. And you guys have seen me shred. I keep my shredder, the top of my shredder full with things that need to be shredded. And I often take time to sit down and shred items, file things, go through things. I just feel stressed and anxiety when I see a bunch of paper clutter. You have to let me know what causes that trigger for you. Like, what triggers anxiety for you as far as clutter goes? Is it your closet, your cleaning closet, paper clutter? What area of your home causes the most anxiety? It always feels good to do this. And the beginning of the year is a great time to reduce the amount of clutter we have in our homes. And I think it is the time of year that most people do anyways. But for some reason, the beginning of the year for me is the easiest to be super ruthless about everything. And I suppose it gives me permission because I can say, well, I've hung on to this for the whole of 2025. Going into 2026, I don't want to hang on to it anymore. You know what I mean? So I think for me, the beginning of the year just kind of gives me that permission because I've held on to it. I hadn't used it. And so, I'm able to get rid of it. Being ruthless in your declutter, I got a comment on my closet declutter. Somebody wanted to know, why didn't I fold everything before putting it into the bags? Valid question, because I typically would. That's just part of my makeup and how I do things. But it's because it wasn't my vibe at the moment. my vibe. When you're being a ruthless, or sorry, when you're being a ruthless person doing a ruthless declutter, the least of your worries is how you are organizing the stuff you're decluttering. The whole point of a ruthless declutter is to get it bagged up and out of your home. That is the only way you're going to do a true declutter, and you're going to be successful at it, in my opinion. Anyways, that little pile was what I decided to declutter out of my cleaning products. And the whole point here is to get everything put back in. Oh, this soap right here, I wanted to show you guys. I found it at Home Goods. It smells so good. So I'm giving it a thumbs up. If you find it at Home Goods, pick it up. You'll love it. Everything that I'm putting back as far as cleaning products, I'm going to categorize. So, like for instance, I have Pine Sol, I have lemon, regular, and then I have some Mr. Clean. I'm going to organize those in a row with the most putting it in the back and the least amount in the jar putting it in the front. And as I use those products, and once I'm done with that product, I will make a homemade product to replace it. That is my goal here. But again, I don't want to waste what I've already purchased, and these are cleaning products that I actually use. That's all I'm putting back in my cleaning closet is stuff that I actually reach for when I do housekeeping. Also getting all my light bulbs in one spot, getting the first aid kit in one spot, just putting like items together just makes more sense. And then I was able to declutter. I don't know if you guys remember how many hand soaps I had. I have a problem with hand soaps, but I only have 2 that I put back in there. And so that felt really good. These are my son's pots on the bottom row here. He brought those with him from Arizona when they moved in here because he likes to make big pots of like pozole and stuff like that. So he brought those. So this is a great place for them. And this Bona mop did not fit in here, and I had been shoving it in here the whole time. This is what I decluttered from all of my hand towels, dishcloths, and all of that. I didn't film the decluttering because I forgot to hit record, but here's what I have. So we're going to get those put back in. But anyways, I'm going to put that Bona mop in the laundry room behind the door with all my other tools that I have for cleaning the floor. And we're going to find a permanent home for these tablecloths and get all this trash bagged up that I decluttered, get it out of my house. We're going to get all those dish towels and hand towels and all of that I decluttered out of my house. And it always feels so good to get these projects done. Increased control and confidence when you are taking charge of your physical spaces. It does translate into control over your life, and it boosts your self-esteem, and it gives you some mental clarity, and you can focus on the present, and that's always a good thing. So I want to encourage you to declutter a space, even if it's just one closet or one basket or one drawer, whatever it is. And I promise you, once you start, you're not going to be able to stop. It's going to give you the itch, and you will eventually have all of those areas of your home decluttered and organized. I hope that today's short video, it's only 13 minutes long, but that's all it took to do this. It took about an hour, but it translated to 13 minutes for you guys. So I hope that the 13 minutes was full of inspiration and motivation to help you declutter a space in your home today. I'm here for you if you have any questions. I hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.